Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Today we're going to be talking about the one and only ICP coin. Ladies and gentlemen, look, you know me, you know that I am personally super high on this coin. I believe, it's one of those coins that even if price fell overnight, I am sleeping comfortably, right? I am sleeping comfortably. The reason is because of this coin's utility, okay? It is because of this coin's utility and also because of its unique structure, right? ICP does have a very unique structure because let's be real, right? This thing came from heaven and fell all the way to hell, but that doesn't mean there's no opportunity in buying this coin and making money this altcoin season, right? This bull cycle, right? Let's just get that clear because the reality is there's going to be lots and lots of opportunity when it comes to that, especially when it comes to ICP. So first off, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start off with the structure, then we will be talking about some other things. So we can see right away that we are pretty much as low as we can possibly go in terms of it looking still pretty good and healthy, right? I don't know about you guys, but I've been, dollar cost averaging many coins over the last few weeks at very fantastic prices because I do believe the reversals are in. We also, ladies and gentlemen, all right, when we go to 3 month candle, we can see that we have tapped into this 3 month order block, which is why I believe, something like this coin will start reversing. Not only that, but because there's going to be more global liquidity coming into the markets over the next few weeks, and something like Bitcoin, if we will go back to ICP in a second, but something like Bitcoin is looking to pump higher and higher over the next little while, right? At this current moment, we can see that we are at $87,069, but I do expect, Bitcoin to pump higher and higher, generally speaking, right? As of right now, we have a little bit of rejection. The reason why there's a little bit of rejection is because we can see we are coming to a nice zone. But I do believe something like Bitcoin, its objective, whether it's this week or next week, will be looking to come back to retest this area over here. And the reason why I say this area is because when we go on to something like, the monthly or even the weekly, we can see lots of weekly candles, right? So many weekly candles in this zone. And, it's a big zone to reclaim, right? So it's probably going to be some type of retest off of this zone and some type of pullback. Then we're going to burst through, and then eventually we're going to go back up to $106,000 before you know it. Overall, I expect, April, May, and June to be the to be the months where we do pretty much, recover, right? And that's the same thing for ICP. I expect ICP to start recovering over the next couple of months because of the things I just said right now, right? In terms of ICP, once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a 3 month order block, which is, the best candle that I can see, right? When we go on the 6 month, technically we are also in the 6 month. When I go on the monthly, right, there's technically this candle over here, but I really doubt we're going to go to $3.37. If we do, I will definitely double down on any positions I do have. We talked about a couple weeks ago how, this zone over here is going to be the last buying zone, in my opinion, right? And we can see we have entered it. We entered it even like a month ago, and then we entered it even lower, $4.20. So fantastic buying opportunities, in my opinion. Even if price were to go, let's say, to $4, when you look back on the bigger scale and say you bought it for $4.80, you cannot be too upset, right? Because I do believe something like ICP, worst case scenario, if it was a complete dud, would still go up to something like $32. So buying something under $5 and selling at $32, you're still making great money, especially if you're buying now. You probably don't have a couple months of holding to reach this type of price. Now, I do believe, just based off institutional candles, we see there's one at $32, there is one at $48, and the one I do believe that's going to be most likely hit this cycle is going to be $72. Now, ICP can go much higher than that, but that is simply based off weekly institutional candles and structure. if we go to and look at ICP's market cap, we can see that, I believe this is one of those coins that's going to be in the 35 to 45 billion market cap zone. So, if we were to 10x from here, that would be $48, roughly at 23 billion market cap. If we were to 20x, that would be roughly, 46, 47 billion market cap, which is where I believe, at the minimum we should be hitting, which would mean this coin would be practically going upwards of $100, right? And, that does also make sense in terms of structure, because the thing is, if we go on the monthly structure, we can see that this monthly wick right over here is pretty much the last relevant monthly candle up until all the way of $136. And then after that, there are no more relevant monthly candles because the next one is at 560. So, I do believe that the $72 zone to roughly $92 zone is going to be the prime of ICP. So even if you were to buy it, let's say right now, roughly at this price, and it were to go to 73 bucks, you would be making like 15 times your money. If it does reach higher, then you would be making 18 times your money, right? And for the utility that this project has is, it makes me confident that it will be hitting these zones, all structure aside, just purely off of its utility, right? I am super, super confident in this coin. Now, the thing is, right, ladies and gentlemen, you obviously always have to do your own research and, do your own due diligence. But I do believe that this coin is going to do very, very well this cycle. And if we do get a double pump, it could potentially be one of the coins that hits, 65, 70, 80, 90 billion market cap, which would mean, ladies and gentlemen, that we could technically go up to upwards of 160 bucks, which I've said before, even a year ago, that we could be hitting that type of price range, right? So it sounds crazy now, but you got to remember that this is probably going to be the biggest altcoin season ever. And we can even see the last relevant structure in terms of daily candles is around, the 160 to 170 mark. Sure, there's a little bit higher wicks over there, but in general, right, for the big zones, we can see there's lots of consolidation roughly once we start from 122 to 160. So remember, all you need to do is just peek in the zone, even just for a couple hours. It doesn't necessarily have to stay for it to hit this zone, right? And then, if you would hypothetically see this in the zone of 120 to 160 bucks, all I'm saying is sell, sell, sell. Don't be one of those people that ends up as a bag holder. On the micro scale, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that we are creating higher lows, which is what we love to see. We have a low here, and then we have a higher low. Now, we did kind of push past this high over here, but what I would like to see next is for this high to be taken out. So whatever happens here, even if we go down a little bit, right, the next pump, I do want to see candle closes roughly at $5.40 to overtake the zone where we were closing at $5.20. Because if that were the case, then we are practically going to be creating, this type of structure where we go up, down here, then we go up like this, most likely down, and we're creating this type of structure, which is what I want for this coin. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.